G'day, welcome to the Requip Roundtable. It's another Wednesday, so it's another opportunity for us involved in ministry in the name of Jesus around Canberra and beyond to get together and talk about different issues, different concerns and ways we're responding to the situation. Welcome to you. It's great to be thinking about ministry to children and their families, something that's always been crucial in the life of the Christian church and seems to be just as important now. It's great that we can get together like this. I was reminded this morning of the part in Mark 10 where Jesus wants little children to come to him. Although it seemed like they were unimportant to everybody else, for Jesus they were important because they were the model of those who come into the kingdom, that it's little children who teach us. And I hope that in the process of the children's ministry you've been involved in, you found little children teach you as much as you get to teach them about what it is to come to Jesus and into his kingdom. Like that. I'm going to pray for us as we begin, and then I'm going to get each of you to introduce yourselves so that we can get to know each other a little bit before we chat about our ministry. Let me pray. Heavenly Father, thanks so much for the Lord Jesus Christ who welcomes each of us as he welcomes children. Give us such trusting faith and a willingness to be responsive to the Lord Jesus that we run to him and can sit on his knee and receive his blessing. We thank you for his death and resurrection and what it means for us then to share that message to the lives of kids and families in our churches. Please give us wisdom, insight and understanding during our chat this morning. And we pray all this in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Terrific. So I'm Jonathan and I run the Requip team, which is part of Canberra Christian Conventions. We try to put on ministry training events during the year. And since we can't meet face-to-face, we decided to do some of our ministry training in this kind of format. So what I might do is get each of you to tell us who you are and where you are so that we can get a sense of the spread of the ministries across Canberra that we're seeing on our screen this afternoon. Caitlin, can I get you to go first?
Yeah, you can. I'm Caitlin and I'm in my second year of a ministry apprenticeship at Crossroads Church and help to look after the kids ministry there.
Great. Phil, where are you at?
G'day everyone. My name's Phil. I'm freed up full time to serve the kids and families at St Matt's Church in Waniassa. Such a blessing to have a kids pastor full time at the moment because it means we can do lots of kids stuff when others are sort of, finding it hard with the lack of time for that in particular.
Yeah, great. Arnica?
Yeah, hi. I do kids ministry at Lanyon Valley Anglican Church with Jonathan. And I've just enjoyed getting to know my families more when I've spent time with them rather than spending time with the kids as they come out to me.
Jen, whereabouts are you?
I'm Jen. I'm at Stromai Christian Church. Yeah, that's right. And I do 4 days a week as the children's minister.
Fantastic. Matt?
Yeah, I'm in my first year of a ministry apprenticeship also at Crossroads Christian Church. And I've been doing bits and bobs and doing a bit of kids ministry as part of that. Yeah.
Great. Linda?
Hello. I do, as a volunteer, children's ministry at Nation's Heart Christian Community in Belconnen. And I also run Super Bricks, a super club at Charmwood Dunlop School, and am involved in Christian education in schools as well.
Fantastic. Wendy?
I'm Wendy and involved with kids ministry at Holy Covenant in Belconnen.
There was a little bit of relief for me from needing to do the Christian Education in Schools and Scripture in Schools program around Easter this year because of the virus. Just took one extra thing off my plate. Whilst I was sad that we weren't able to go into the schools and talk to the kids about Jesus, it did mean I could focus my attention on other things. just in different places where you're at the moment, can I get you to think back first to kind of how ministry was before you had to respond to a worldwide pandemic? What were some of the challenges in the kids ministry that you do that you were dealing with before any of this happened? Anyone can jump in on that.
I think I've already answered that in a way that I'm a volunteer, and the kids would come out with me and I'd get to know the kids really well, but I never really had time in the family space to connect with families. So it was very much me and other volunteer leaders and the kids. And in this space, it's been very much me and the families, encouraging them to disciple their own children.
Thanks. Anyone else have kind of particular challenges that seem to come along with the way that ministry was running before this virus kicked off?
Getting volunteers, getting someone to, so I am volunteering, but I also need people to be, we only have about 12 to 14 school-aged kids, but just to get one other adult with me, because obviously it's, you know, I need someone else out there, but yeah, that was one of the hardest things.
It's a challenge, isn't it? Other people have other challenges?
Yeah, John, probably just allowing, or not allowing, sorry, kids would come every second week to church. Obviously, it's not their choice. And so just having consistency. We might have 120 kids in primary school age on our sort of, that might come 5 times a term. But every week there's only 60 to 70 kids. So that's a challenge we have, because you miss a week and you lose all that momentum.
Yeah.
I was finding our church is quite small, and we have probably about 5 kids, maybe less, coming out a week. And we were just doing primary school age kids. But we have probably 5 or 6 that are younger than primary school age, so 3 to 5-year-olds. And again, don't have many leaders and don't have many volunteers. And the ones I have don't like it when those younger ones come out. So that is a challenge, but it's actually been a bit, they're the ones that are most excited about me sending out materials to them.
Yeah, right.
And I've been getting feedback from them about being involved now.
I think for us, along the lines of Phil, having the struggle of irregular attendance, and even now just realising how much the parents are the gateway to children being able to access ministry. If the parents don't bring them to church, or at the moment, if they're not clicking on the resources or showing them videos or whatever, or actually opening the Bible with their children themselves, like the parents are actually the key. So, trying to work hard to engage the parents so the parents actually want to engage the children.
Yeah, I feel like for me, as like a new apprentice, me and my trainer were trying to think about how do you minister to the whole family, like a whole family, and just being a young person without kids, how to engage with a family and how do you help them grow. So I was beginning to get to know just the kids, and then to try and get to know the parents, I think was really difficult, because I felt like, you know, they drop off their kids and then they just want to pick up their kids and sort of go. So maybe it wasn't attendance, but just kind of the, you know, get them in, get them out kind of mentality where, I feel like I didn't get to foster that relationship with the parents as much.
I don't think I just echoed what other people have said. Like, obviously I'm at the same place as Matt, so we have similar experiences in that way. And trying to, like, knowing that discipling of the children is not just like our responsibility as those who are with them on Sunday, but having, like, getting that across to families as well.
Phil, can I get you to start and tell us, as someone who kind of is able to kind of do it full time, and with a bit of a team around you, what were some of your kind of initial thoughts in terms of how to respond and put in place a ministry that worked while everybody was trapped at home?
Yeah, it all happened pretty fast, didn't it? So I think obviously I'm involved with some of the adult things as well, and discussion of whether church was going to be on and how we're going to do that week, and the offshoot is, well, kids also. And interestingly, there was an expectation that we wouldn't do anything for the kids the first week because it was all stressful and fast paced. And I'm like, hey, if there's kids there, we don't want to hinder them. We're doing something for the kids. So right from the start, we sort of just, kids spot in the service, make them feel loved, included, reassured them, addressed them, and sent out just an email to the parents sort of saying, here's some goodies to that you can get your kids to do while the adult sermon's on, and then after the sermon, give it a go. I mean, we had a lot of discussion intensely for like a day or two. But at the end of the day, there was some decisions needed to be made by me and just get it out there. And I think parents as well were kind of surprised as, oh, wow, there's like a full on curriculum for us to do already. Wow, this is we're thankful. And perhaps I shot myself in the foot a bit because since then it has been reliant on me a lot, which is fine because I'm freed up, but it's only sort of one dimensional because it's just me often. So discussions were quick.
And then what sort of things have you been able to develop in the meantime? What are some of the kind of add-ons where after a week or two, you realized there was a bit of capacity to kind of do something extra?
Yeah. So we run our church services live. And so even just doing interactivity live, we did a colouring in competition one week where we had there's a 25-second lag on the contingency on the live services, but we still had a Kahoot sort of poll where we got and there was like 250 people all voting on 4 colouring ins, which was everyone loved that, the adults and the kids. So just adding things in like that has been helpful. I was telling the guys before you jumped on about a quiz as well that we do just every week, just after church, and it's like a review. And then we actually did Psalm 1 at one point, and blessed is the person who meditates on the word of the Lord. And so we started up a dinner event as well each Sunday, where it was a chance for the family at the dinner table could say grace together and think back on something that they've learned, and then I posed them with another question, and I'd do that with a puppet, so the puppet sort of made it kiddie. So just adding different things on each week. So this week it's taken a while, but we're now doing a challenge of can you do your own home video of a memory verse or a song and send it in. We've also got a kids wall. So previously we have a physical wall where we stick up photos of the kids just doing their goodies. So now what we've got is a digital wall, and the kids send their photos of themselves working, or of colouring in sheets, or of puzzles, or of some crafts, and we post them up on that, and that's been a nice community kind of place. And what I can do there as well is in like a kid's spot, I can show back the wall this week, or so it's interactive. Another one is just the prizes for the weekly catch quiz or Sunday school quiz. We just had one prize at the start, and then I realized, actually, let's make 3 prizes, because it gives me an excuse to go and visit 3 different houses each week. And kids love it, the mums and dads love it because they're not seeing anyone, and so to be able to give a gift to them and chat to them and pray with them has been also very enlightening to see how families operate and the difficulties that they share. But just to have access into the home, which is something that, previously if I tried to organise to come around, it's like a hassle and, times and everything. So it's been nice that people have been available, and you sort of know that they're available. And then we do have a weekly kind of leaders meeting still on Zoom, which is like a Bible study where we have a look at the passage we're teaching the kids. And we've been also teaching the kids the same as the adults in the service, whereas we don't usually do that. Sometimes we do, but we don't always, mostly not always. And that's brought its challenges too, because we've been doing some Psalms that we wouldn't usually teach the kids, which has been rich, but a bit heavy. And now we've started Daniel, and Daniel 1's okay about veggies, but Daniel 2's a bit of a challenge, and even 3, but you know, we can make fun or light of the fact that, you know, Book of Daniel's all about lions, and of course that keeps them going a bit. But the leaders have been praying for the kids. The leaders we've been having small group Zooms, maybe once every 3 weeks, which I shared with the guys earlier. It's not been too successful with the younger kids. But I think what I tell my leaders is, and you guys might agree or not agree to this, is that a big part of the goal of just now in quarantine has been just to keep the relationships going. So it's less about teaching. It's more about relationships, so that the momentum we don't lose that connection with kids and families. Having said that, we've been teaching pretty full on as well, but the point of it is to keep in contact. So while the Zoom meetings don't work real well, do them still once every 3 weeks, you know, not every week, once every 3 weeks to keep the connection. And only about a third to a quarter of the families join in with those. Yeah.
Now, Phil, I know you've got another meeting that you need to get to. So is there anything, before you kind of head off, is there any kind of like one top tip you would suggest, or possibly my other question for you is like, what's some of those kind of foundational ministry principles that told you what it was you were supposed to do? Just, you know, pick any of those and answer it, or answer your own question.
Unity is important with the whole church, with your team, with the kids. Transparency is important. Communication, obviously. Emails are a good way of communicating. However, there's been a barrage of emails for everyone. So realistic expectations, not getting discouraged when only a third of the families or kids take part in something, but being realistic about that. Praying, recognizing the joy it is to meet together usually, and so being appreciative of that. Not forgetting outreach, so equipping the kids to share with their kids in their street with a letterbox drop. You know, we did a little thing with the QR code and getting the kids to watch a video. I think just, not despairing as the leader, like for all of us, if we're shaky, I think that, I mean, there's a level of being honest and real, don't get me wrong, but you've got to set the tone that, you know, God's good and we trust in him. He's a rock. Let's press on and make the most of this challenging time. So and not compromising, I guess, not settling for less than what you'd like and what God would like, and being confident that nothing will stop him. So it's just the truths of the Bible, just continually shaping what we do and how we do it. Not sure if that answered your question, but you know,
it was good. Didn't really matter what I was asking, just hearing some of your thoughts on how you've gone about it and why you've gone about it the way you have been really helpful. Jen, over there at Stromlo Christian Church, how did you guys respond when it was kind of lockdown time and you realised that, you know, everything you'd carefully planned for term 1 was now not going to happen like you thought?
I'm just going to say my connection is unstable and you guys are all frozen, so I don't know if you're going to be able to hear what I'm saying. Hopefully you can.
Yep.
We were actually gearing up for our big 10th anniversary weekend when all of this hit. So our first online service was actually on the weekend where we're going to have a big celebration. So we were going to have an all-age service anyway. So we tried to put as much as we could online. Yeah, that was a big shift, but that's what everybody had to face, I suppose. We've done a lot of things, in some ways, starting small and getting bigger to see what we needed to do, what worked, and what was sustainable as well. So normally we do follow what the adults are doing in the hall and follow the same Bible passages. In term 1, we had decided not to do that for various reasons, and we were working through a gospel. But when all of this happened, we realised quickly that we need to align what the children were doing with what the adults were doing. Children would simply be attending online church with their families. So it was my job then to provide content for the children. So I did that in various ways. One of them was added a new page on our website so that my families can go in, and every week there's new material based on the particular passage that we're looking at that week. So families can print out activity pages and colouring in pages and all that sort of stuff, and use them with their children, and craft stuff as well, and use them with the children. That webpage also has links for music, for clips, a Spotify playlist that I've started for the children. It's got extra things like the Bible Society Easter resource and the Compassion prayer resources and the YouthWorks prayer resources. All that sort of stuff is really easy to share with families now that we've got the web page going. One of the things that I've been doing every week that's been really important to me was to do a video message that we send out every Friday. And it's really important to me because usually every week I would get to speak to the children at church and out at Stromlo Kids. And so they're used to hearing from me. And so for one of the things to keep things normal is I've got a message for them every week. And it's based on what's available for them at the time, but it's also based on what we're doing. It might be like almost like a kid spot. It's a chance to share with them how I'm going and what my family's up to. It's a chance to talk to them about about things that are coming up, and that's been really cool. One of the children actually said to their mum that well, he basically says that I'm talking directly to him. So he says, oh, Jen told me this, Jen told me that. So he feels like I'm speaking specifically to him, and that's really cool that that's personalised. I still don't have any, I can't see or hear any of you. So I'm just going to keep going. Send me a text if I'm going on for too long. We've got some challenges going. We're doing 1 Samuel this term. So we've got a memory verse challenge, and memory verse is 1 Samuel 16, and they can send in anything to do with that. We're doing a creative challenge on any story from 1 Samuel. I dropped off Easter packets to families. I actually needed a few leaders to help me do that. And that was really cool just to see families, like Phil was saying, just to eyeball people, see how they're going, standing at a safe distance on the porch and having a catch up. We have, I'm Zooming with each age group once a month with another leader, but I'm Zooming with the younger children with their families. So the young children through to year 2, I'm doing a family Zoom. So I'm actually catching up with the whole family, and that's working much better than trying to get a whole lot of kids on at one time of that age group. Yeah, we've got a bingo card each month, and it's got lots of activities the families can do together. It's got ways that children can serve, ways that children can be looking for outreach. We've got a prayer page on our website, so the kids print it out and they actually encouraged to be praying for friends, family, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, we've sent out cards to every child. And our services are shorter than they would be in person. So in person, they're normally an hour and a half, and we're keeping them to 45 minutes to an hour. There's not a lot of kids content in the actual service, other than we have an at-home with every week. So every week we have an at-home with segment which is about 1 to 2 minutes long, and we're working our way around the church. So at home with one family might be how they're outreaching to the neighbours with their pizzas. Another at home with is simply how they're going for walks together. Another at home with was people showing how they're doing lots of gardening and cooking. So trying to get as many faces on screen as possible, so that people, especially the kids, feel like they're really still in touch with people from church and connecting still. And I still get no feedback, so I'm going to stop there.
Thanks, Jen. Good work for ploughing on through an unstable connection. Many of us have experienced the joys of the unstable connection at the very wrong moment. Been good to hear that your church obviously worked hard on how to stay engaged with the kids. Wendy, what did it look like for you to kind of adapt? Did the things that the changes made for adults impact on the way that you needed to make adaptations for ministering to the kids and their families?
So at Holy Covenant, we do godly play which you guys might have heard of, a Montessori approach to Sunday school. So I'll tell a story with figurines and then ask wondering questions, and then the kids respond to the story that I've told in different ways. So now we're not in that room anymore, so now I still do it. So we Zoom before the service for half an hour, and it's kind of changed a little bit. Every week I've been doing different things, and actually we've had more people come regularly through Zoom now than before, so which is interesting. And my Zoom time with them, I usually we start with a prayer, and then we watch a video from Max 7 or whatever it is, and we actually follow the liturgical calendar, and we do exactly what the adults are. We're learning the same. So I just usually pick one, which is kind of easier to explain to the kids of the four. So we might watch a video together, and then we might talk about it a little bit, and then I might do a godly play. So for example, the Ascension last week, I had the Barbies and the Lego toy, everything out, and did that on Zoom. And then I encourage them to build their own kind of respond however they want to respond. Sometimes I might just record myself teaching or doing a video, and then we'll watch me teaching together, because I find it easier to record myself first without kind of all their little interruptions, and then we discuss it. I really love that Kahoot quiz idea, because I think for us that would work really well, because so 9:30 to 10 is our kids' church, and then we have our actual service from 10 till 10:45ish. Then we have this big space where there's 100-ish people on Zoom, and it's not structured, and because the kids, I've just spoken about what Wayne, our minister, has preached on, so everyone could, I think that whole quiz idea could work really well. We could do something like that in that space. So that's how we've been doing it every week. And we're in discussions about what stage 1 or what the next stages will be. The problem with our church is that with the 4 meter squared rule, we can only fit about 34-ish adults. So that will affect what families can come, and so I expect that I'll be Zooming for a long time. So yeah. So that's what we've been doing at the moment.
Yeah, wow, sounds really helpful. Sounds like you've come up with some good ideas there. Annika, which direction did you go when it came to working out how to respond to the needs of kids and their families?
Yep. I looked at my own family and thought, actually, we're over-screened. And so I made a decision to do zero screen with my kids' church families, which I realised was stepping outside of the COVID space. And I made them all a book with their own name on it, and chose to follow the curriculum that I'd set in January, and which is, we're basically following Hebrews 11 for the whole semester. And prayed that God would encourage the families to disciple their own kids. But I recognise that I need to be in that space. So I visited families on the doorstep, like Phil and Jen said. I've done that every week with a letter, and I've found families really appreciative. And where I thought it would only take me a small amount of time, it's actually taken me hours to deliver, because people want to chat and engage. The downside has been families have, I think, used it and catered around the Bible with their kids. And I had a whole lot of activities every week. And each child's book is different from each other, although it's got the same content. And I've got a whole lot of activities that you can do as a family, some games that you could do as a family, and a page of puzzle that you can do individually. But what's happened is some of the children, some of the families have not done church. Because whether they've found the Zoom church intimidating or too hard with kids. And I realised that in God's providence, it still means that they've come together over the scriptures. So God's provided in that way. That was not my cleverness of forethought. It was his generous provision. And I realised that the linking of relationship between me and the families was important, and that's a space that I haven't had before, because people send their kids. It means that their kids aren't interrupting them during the service, and then they get their kids back and they go home, whereas now it's been much more intentional. And I say to my kids' church leaders, who tend to be 16 and 17-year-olds, actually, we have the most important ministry in the church. With respect, Jonathan.
So true.
But the ministry to kids is so important, and pushing that down to families, I've had some really positive comments back on that. So, yep.
And it does open up significant questions about the ways in which the parents in the families are also being discipled to be followers of Jesus who can disciple their own kids. And I hope for other pastors in churches, they're realising what perhaps may have been too easily outsourced to very gifted and able leaders that ought to have been kind of like a parent's responsibility, or whoever the caregiver is. So Caitlin and Matt, I might leave you to fight it out between yourselves, how you kind of talk to us about what happens at your church. But in terms of kind of responding to the situation and what kids ministry did, what happened there at the Crossroads Church?
Well, I might just let Caitlin speak, because I'm not super involved in kids ministry overall, but some of the things that I've been doing as I just do the the 3-year-olds when it was all normal, and so we've gone to Google Classrooms. So each week there's a video that video story that someone has put together from our church that we send them each week. And some of the things that I guess I've been able to do as I've been in the music world before this. So I've been doing some like memory verses with songs and creating song videos, which has been really fun. Yeah, but yeah, apart from that, that's sort of been my involvement. But Caitlin can probably speak more to what our kids pastor has been doing, Karen Rudder. But yeah, take us away, Caitlin.
Thanks, Matt. Yeah, so I think just following on from what Matt has said, the way that we responded and what we did with kids and families was that we kind of got a few things in place. One of them, as Matt has mentioned, is Google Classrooms, which we're trying to use more as a connection point between kids and leaders and between kids in the same class. So they're kind of set up like a regular Sunday morning class would be set up. So with the kids within that class and the same leaders that would have been leading them in person. Had varying success in take up of whether families have got involved in that, which I think is, kind of what Annika had mentioned about screen fatigue and all of that. And so I think as families, we're trying to do all of school from home, also then doing that for kids' church was a lot for families. So we've had varying success in people taking that up. As for like teaching content, we have been, as Matt also mentioned, like the first 10 minutes of our service is a video that is put together by different leaders, different other kids leaders and families that are, that has something to do with, it is based around the same passage that will be preached on later in the service. So it's just like songs and a bit of a teaching spot and just different activities so they can kind of be engaged right at the start of church and try and hope that they will continue to stay engaged throughout, but knowing that especially for the younger ones, that is a big ask. So just kind of hoping that at least that 10 minutes we will keep them engaged. And we've also been putting together like family guides that are based again around the same passage as being looked at in church. They get sent to the parents each week for them to just pick one activity from the suggestions that are there for them to do with their kids, either on the Sunday or throughout the week. Just so again, so that trying to equip parents and encourage parents as they disciple their children in ways that like they may not have had to do before this time. I think that's basically covers things.
I like the way you said equipping the parents, because I've found that very much necessary in this space, and I didn't realise how ill-equipped many parents feel for discipling their own kids.
Do people think, just picking up on that, that there's ways in which the old style kids ministry at church accidentally kind of reinforces this message that parents are under-equipped? Are there, what do you notice now when you think back on that?
Well, just the whole sending the kids away and not, this is, you're outsourcing. Yeah, here you go, off you go. You teach the kids and bring them back, and then off we go. The sort of consumerist, outsourcing-y idea of ministry. Yeah.
We've tried to overcome that with having, we interview somebody from church every week, but I still agree it feels very outsourced and hard to...
Sorry, you interview on the, when do you interview them? At the...
when we have regular kids church, before COVID, we would have a guest interview, just ask how they met Jesus, actually often asking something about the main teaching point for that, how that impacted them.
That's a great idea, yeah.
I've always been very challenged about the whole intergenerational stuff. We have over 100 kids, and we do take them out for a kids program. We have them in once a term for an all-age service. But coming from a teaching background myself, just trying to always work out how to help parents engage and not have their only point of connection being the "what did you do in Stromno Kids today" question, which always is nothing or not much or I don't know. So yeah, communicating with the parents as to what we're actually doing, giving parents questions that they can ask each week about what's happening in Stromno Kids, and also inviting parents to be a leader or a leader helper in their child's group has been fantastic, and a lot of parents have had their eyes really opened to not only what we do out there, but also how they can have those sorts of conversations with their own children. So I feel like that's actually equipped parents themselves to do stuff in their homes with their kids.
I think too that during this time I've noticed the parents are coming to my Zooms. So it's actually been a kind of a family event, which has been different from how it normally was, which has been great. So perhaps somehow I can, we can capitalize on this moving forward. Yeah, the involvement.
Yeah, guys, I'm still with you. I've found that it's surprising that there's not some basics that families are doing, like saying grace together before meals. That's a surprise to me. And so the few that do it really well, and they're involved in their kids' lives spiritually. And then there's just a big void. And it's like the outsourcing thing that's been happening, like you go to church and that's what Christianity is. So what we've done now with the questions for the kids is actually labeled it and encouraged it to be family discussion time. And the questions are even they're not suitable just for a child to ask of themselves, that they have to be involved. Like the question might say, what does mum and dad do for, or what's mum's opinion on the way you interact with your siblings, and so getting them to talk together. And people have been feeding back saying that that's really helpful, because I don't think they do that very often, actually talk about the gospel together as a family. So just noticing that has been helpful for as we returned, how to invest our time.
How did you find out that families aren't saying grace and doing some of those, what we might call basics?
So one of the things we do with our dinner time prayer that we make up, we call it Barry the Bear, and I go and visit someone's house and we film it in their house at their dinner table. So that in itself has been enlightening, because you come in and you say, okay, so whereabouts do you guys have dinner? There on the couch in front of the TV. Oh, okay, cool. That's fine. There's all sorts of ways. So, and what do you guys usually say for grace? And the kids are honest, and mum and dad are pretty embarrassed. And they say, "Oh, grace, what's that?" And so, yes, that's been probably the main way, Jen. But no, just so a number of families, I see them around variety of ways, in the shopping centre or whatever. And one of the first things they say to me is, "Oh, Phil, I've been wanting to apologise to you." And I'm like, this is weird, what? And they then say, "Oh, I've just been too busy and we haven't been able to do this and that." And yeah, and they even say things that I'm like, no one was expecting you to do that. Or, we give them lots of things and you just jump in and do what you want. But so that I don't have to ask.
Yes, I've realised that especially in this time, part of what we do has to be training families to disciple their own kids. And like you, Phil, it's surprised me, I think. So as I've written letters to parents, I just talk about what we do at home and hope that they pick up on that, as that could possibly be a good idea. But that's hoping for them to gain that, but also having intentional conversations about, here are some good ideas of what you can do. And that's been because I've been able to talk with families, and they've been really keen to chat.
Yeah.
I found, oh, I'm sorry, Matt.
Oh, no, you go, Wendy.
I was just going to say, right at the start, I found a wonderful resource that was talking about how this is a Sabbath, time to reconnect with your family and reconnect with God, or reconnect with God. But it had all these ways as a family. I should forward it on to you guys, but which is what I sent, because I send a weekly email to my families with different resources that I found and ideas and the links. I found that I always have to give the link, even though it's the same link, to prompt them. But yeah, I right at the start I gave them this link about this is a time that we can connect with God and connect with our family, and if we think of it as a Sabbath, then yeah, that was very helpful. Yeah. Sorry, Bet.
Yeah, just in terms of like starting my ministry apprenticeship, I've really found it helpful being in staff meeting, and we've been thinking a lot about our training strategy, and I think we've sort of been pushing against the separation between sort of adults training and kids training, or kids ministry, almost, you know, the absence of kids training, but to keep reminding ourselves that when we're thinking about adults training, we also need to be thinking about training adults to read the Bible with their kids, and how to do that, how to pray with their kids, not just, you know, high theological, you know, things, or how do you evangelize your workmates, like that's all important, but actually just the nitty gritty of, like, you know, it's Sunday or whatever day you read the Bible with your kids or pray, to give parents encouragement and just very specific ways about, you know, how you're gonna do the you know, meat and potatoes of reading the Bible, praying, and involving your kids in that. I think that's been really great to be involved in those conversations, even if I don't, you know, enact anything. It's just good to have in my brain as someone thinking about ministry in the future. Yeah.
That's what was great about this resource, that it said no soccer training, no worries. Instead, how about you say, dear God, we are sad that soccer isn't on, but we are glad that, you know, and think about the good things. So this had all sorts of ways that we could reuse our time to reconnect with each other and with God. Yeah.
I've shared with families some ideas that we've been using as a family at home. My boys are older, as in adults now, but things like we have a jar, one called grief and one called gratitude. So we can, if we're sad about not being able to go to a birthday party, or happy about spending more time together, we write it on a piece of card and put it into the relevant thing. And then every Monday night when we get together after our meal, we write one each, and then we pass them on to someone else, and then we all pray as for each other's grief and gratitude points. And sharing that with families really early on. When I have Zoomed families, they've very happily shown me their grief and gratitude jars, or their happy and sad jars, or whatever, that I think families often want to do something with their children, but they need the ideas, or they need the encouragement or the tools to be able to do it. So I found me sharing those sort of ideas with people been really helpful too.
I agree with what you said, Phil, that actually what we think is our bread and butter for day-to-day Christian living, read the Bible, devotional times, prayer times, many families haven't picked up on that. And we need to be far more intentional in guiding them and encouraging them in those spaces.
Yeah, I feel like it's just revealing a reality that was there before, it's just clearer. And I'm not saying sheep and goats necessarily. I'm just meaning Christians who are lazy, let's just say that for now, and those who are quite intentional and hardworking and disciplined and self-controlled and, yeah, investing in the kingdom. And so how do we reach these guys who are believers in our churches, but just take them to the next step? Because like sometimes I've found sharing what we do is too much of a jump for them. And so they go, oh, I'm not that good. And they don't even try. So just trying to find just the next step, you know, that's not easy. It means that us as facilitators and equippers, yeah, there's really lots of little snippets we have to do to feed. Yeah.
In some ways, I'll be sad when Kids Church comes back, just given the model that I've used, because I actually think God's design is for families to disciple the kids and not to outsource to somebody else who's going to do it. Yeah. So part of me is not in a hurry to go back to non-COVID times.
Yeah. So how do we keep things going that we've seen are valuable, given that when we head back, we're going to be busy with all that back stuff? Yeah, I'm really keen to keep some stuff too. And there's the capacity, I can't do everything. So there's going to be some balls dropped, and that's right. I think that's what the lead pastors are talking about now as well, because obviously lots of churches will be doing, you know, videoing for the next few years still, and that comes at a small cost. So where does it, what gets pushed off the table?
Do people have kind of principles, biblical imperatives that tell you what things can be dropped and what things really need to stay running? So that's a no then. Excellent. Okay. We've got a bit of work to do, people. And maybe you've got them, but they haven't been articulated yet. So, for example, one thing that stood out to me from listening to you guys is just how much relationship obviously matters in the context of ministry. And so what is the healthiest thing to do in the relationships that you've got? How many relationships can you manage? And how many people are working with you, and how complex does that make the set of relationships? How long do you think you have these kids for in terms of investing in them in the discipleship program that you're trying to run for them? And to what extent does God's word need to sit at the center and have everything else flow out, and technology can drop off as long as Jesus is pictured clearly in his gospel? Some of those sorts of things.
One of the things that I had opportunity to meet with a friend who's going through a very difficult time, and she was able to say, what came to my mind in my struggle has been what I learned as a child of God, of his word. And I think that was an enormous encouragement to me in the space that we do Kids Church, that having kids memorize the scriptures and having the Bible as foremost, so important, because when push comes to shove, hopefully that's what they're going to remember.
Yeah, we did a series last year on questions for God, and we actually invited the children to ask all of the questions that they wanted to know about God and life and death and everything else. And I put together just a page. Like, we started not with the questions that the kids had, but we actually started with who God is. So we used what we'd been looking at all year, and we did a big summary of God's character, who is God. And when we did our questions for God, you know, suffering and all that sort of stuff, we had guests come in and speak to us and answer questions. and they talked about how their relationship with God affected the way they think about the environment or the way they think about suffering and that sort of thing. So what we do all the time is the meat, and it's supposed to be equipping and installing in our children truths that they then carry with them through these kind of times. And we've just been continually reminding children of God's character at this time, and songs that we sang last year that were about about suffering and that sort of thing have been really helpful, just to remind the kids that we know who God is, we know that he hasn't changed. And so I think just keeping on doing what we're doing, it might look different, but the meat is the same.
Be interested to know from you guys, what's your kind of go-to place to get resources for kids ministry? What's the kind of, when you really need something good that you can rely on, where do you go to? What do you look up?
The song goes, "Tell me the old story of Jesus and his love." And one of the things that I used to help me was a very old, out-of-date publication called the Bible Curriculum Guide. And as it suggests, it just takes you through the whole Bible. As it suggests a passage, it then gives you lesson truths. And I think thinking like that is actually really helpful. And what does it teach me about God as a lesson truth? What does it teach me about sin? Rather than looking at a story, and we often do narrative with kids' church, but rather than looking at a story and thinking, how can we be like Daniel? It's actually the lesson truth about who God is what's going to be helpful. And it's a very old document that I love dipping back into.
What do other people turn to for resources?
I think anything that you use to understand the Bible is the most helpful. So I love this series. I don't know if you can see my screen. None of you are moving on your screens, but the For You series is really helpful to, especially someone who's not theologically trained, to be really thinking through what the passage actually means, rather than that superficial thing of just saying, be like, dare like Daniel, or how to trust like David. I think if you've got your kids ministry hat on and you're looking for ways to explain the Bible well to kids, then just getting deeply into something that helps you understand the Bible. But I think a resource that I go back to again and again, which is also more kind of high level, it's not actually giving you specific curriculum or anything, is youth work. So all of the youth works articles and stuff, they've got a lot about how to partner with families. They've got a lot about how to reflect on what you're doing and things at the moment. They've been really good.
Yeah, I would echo Jen's stuff. When I got a passage, I just try and get the Saturday before. I'm, studying full time too, so it's a little bit hard sometimes, but the Saturday before, and I'll just get stuck into it and try and really nut it out, and then try and work out how I've got to get that in, simplify what I've learned. For me too, like, there's a lot of big churches that have got some wonderful resources out there. So whatever flavour, a denominational flavour, you can find big churches that have got a lot of their stuff, like St. Barnabas or whatever, whoever you're using. And also there's a few blogs that I follow, and then those people of Christians that I respect, and so then they'll have ideas up as well. So that's another way. That's really how I prepare. And also because we have the godly play element, often that will be, someone would have already videoed that somewhere, and so I'll be able to have a look at what other people are doing with that passage, so which helps me too.
Yeah, I think to echo both Wendy and Jen, that's what one of the things that I've learnt from Karen as I've kind of trained under her in kids ministry over the last year and a bit, is that, yeah, that first and foremost, she always tells me, like, go to the passage, work out what the main idea is, and then from there, work out how you're going to then teach it to children. But the main idea doesn't change just because it's for children. It's just then explaining it in a way that is helpful for them. One of the resources that we will often use is Kids Wise by Sandy Galea, and just even if we don't use it, just using it as a reference point to gain ideas. We don't often, Crossroads often will write their own program for kids, and so we don't use theirs, but just good for getting ideas and having a bounce off point to start with, I think, is helpful.
Phil, did you want to jump in and tell us where all your resources come from, or they all come out of your head?
Resources. Yeah, we, what for? Like for the teaching or for the engaging?
We've gone pretty far and wide in the conversation so far in terms of what the resources have been for, maybe just for your own health and well-being, or right through to kind of how you grapple with the passages yourself that you're trying to teach the kids, particularly as you work through Daniel, I guess, but then also, well, you know, when you just need a reliable, decent craft or activity, what's your first reach to kind of find that?
Yep. I try not to think of a craft first and things like that. So you've got to discipline yourself to open up the Bible, have a read. And so I'm forced to do that each Tuesday night because we have a special group of kids ministry people that get together and look at the passage. So we read the passage, we study the passage, we know the message, we apply the message to ourselves and as adults. And then we start thinking about, so that's the truth, there's the principle, eternal principle, right? How do we teach that to the kids? So that's really helpful, just working out what's going on. And also, even just with other leaders, but with kids as well, keeping everything in a biblical theology. So we're constantly talking about, you know, one big story where God came to rescue his children, blah, blah, blah. Can't remember now, CIS one. But, as far as brainstorming and stuff goes, I often find a kid's video as well, like once we've studied the passage, to sort of see how an expert has put it together. And it won't be, often the kids' videos are not messages, they're just the Bible retold. And so we work hard to make sure we don't just tell the Bible, although often the message is in the story. We also work hard to explain the Bible and make sure there's a message there that can be applied. So there are some websites and things that I go to for me. Saddleback Kids is a classic. The Hey You series or something, I can't remember what it is. And they're you know, fun and engaging and in my humble opinion, you know, faithful to God's word, because some obviously videos aren't. And some companies that do this are after money as well, and I feel a bit yuck about all that. So it's lovely when they offer things for free, although they've got a store, don't get me wrong. Crossroads Kids Club, so not this Crossroads, the American Crossroads Kids Club, they're really good as well, really faithful. And then, yeah, maybe even like Superbook, that they do a great job. And then like just variety is another go-to. So I think, what have we done recently for how to communicate our message? Let's mix it up. So, you know, puppets, video, drama, pictures, and online it works quite well because you can just, in iMovie, drop in pictures over someone recording the Bible reading. So it's quite engaging. getting other kids involved. So yeah, going and getting the kids to do the kids spot or the teaching, the message. So I think they're my go-tos. And then basically, if you're in the passage early in the week, you know, it's how it works, isn't it? God brings stuff to you all the time, little snippets. So all those peripherals make it engaging, but the discipline is not to make one of them your majors. So we work hard again on what's the big idea or the main thrust of the message. Like what are we definitely going to teach? And then what are some sort of fun bits and applications along the way? So this week is a classic. It's Daniel 2. And, you know, where it's really the interpretation of the dream of the statue, Nebuchadnezzar, that, you know, yeah, God's kingdom is bigger and better and longer lasting than all kingdoms, other kingdoms and rules. So, you know, worthy to trust in. It's going to be around for a long time. That's our main sort of thrust. But there's some cool stuff along the way. And one of the ones we're going to pick up on is Daniel's, you know, he's in trouble, doesn't know what to do. He prays. And it's wonderful that he prays. And then God reveals the dream to him and he praises God. And then in front of the king Nebuchadnezzar, he also like gives the glory to God as well. So there's this 3-step movement we're going to flesh out a little bit, just a little bit, so that parents can do that. And I've got an idea as well that, like I said, things come to you over time, don't they? And mixing it up every week is good. I'm going to send out, I don't do this every week, never done it before. Every day I'm going to send out a prayer for the kids. And it's going to be like, you know, praying like Daniel, actually. So that's like a peripheral message, but it's still going to be helpful. And I think Jen mentioned the Youth Works guys. They've got a great little prayer thing happening at the moment. Yeah. So stealing things is good for the sake of the gospel. I do ask for permission sometimes off organisations, but not always. I found that quite hard. I don't know if any others have found that.
I think one of the things that everyone's mentioned is actually, as we open the scriptures, we have to let God speak to us because we can't communicate something that isn't real in our life. And all those peripheral things, you can Google and you'll come across all of those places that you've mentioned. But ultimately, we have to be communing with God ourselves.
Yeah, good one.
I should have mentioned too, I'm not sure if it's one of you guys, but someone compiles the ACT children's ministry. That's a great resource too. So thank you if it's one of you guys that does that. For example, so we've got Pentecost coming up. So there's some great ideas about Barocca, you know, and dispensing the Holy Spirit, you know, through the water. And yeah, so is that, I'm not sure if it's one of you guys that does that.
I think it's Libby.
Ah, okay. Yeah, it's wonderful. So that's another resource.
Jen does some stuff too, don't you, Jen? It's I rarely get to look at it even, let alone input into it, but it's helpful too. It's good stuff.
Yeah, I do have a thing on Facebook. It's funny, it's just a group of us just trying to share ideas, but I call it receivers then givers, because that's what it is actually about. Like Annika was saying, like it's actually about us receiving the message and knowing the message before we try and share it. And Phil is so right. Like I often like getting the passage, I'm understanding it, no ideas whatsoever, and then, you know, I sit there and I go, well, God's going to give me something, but sometimes I get a bit impatient. But, you know, sometimes I get incredible ideas and I think, well, that came out of nowhere, which of course it didn't. But it's because the passage is sitting in my head and going around and around, and God is convicting me, and that's really cool.
So Jen's group is givers and then receivers then givers. And there's a children's ministry network group as well. So if you haven't come across those, probably time to look those up on Facebook or contact us and we can put you in touch with Libby from Logostore. Sorry, Matt, were you going to jump in there?
Oh, just a really quick one that our church did recently is in terms of engagement, just using the kids as engagement. Like we, in our morning service, a kid did service leading. I mean, that's quite incredible to have a kid that could do that. He was amazing, to be so young and so confident. But or sometimes we would have a whole family do the service leading sort of on the screen. I think that would be really encouraging for a kid to feel like, you know, they're being represented. So that was really cool.
Yeah, that sounds good. Sounds like the kind of thing you can take back to that pastor or minister of your church and suggest to them as something that they might want to do. I do hope there's things that you guys have found helpful in connecting today and talking together, maybe an idea or two that you've scribbled down that you want to take away, or a conversation you want to go and have with the rest of your team and the people who pray for you and support you in your children's ministry. Been really good to talk together and benefit from the connections that we have here in Canberra and doing this ministry to kids and their families.